What's up, everyone, and welcome to ClearTalk. So, in this video, I want to talk about the Texas flood and stuff that happened on July 4th, the kind of what led to that, the outcome so far from response from local level, FEMA, and all that, and then kind of all this uh, sitting on the idea that Trump has brought about himself, along with some of his own administration members, to completely eliminate FEMA, and like the conversation around the idea of that happening and how much it will affect states, the response time, the response capability, funding, and all that for natural disasters going forward. If that were to, if FEMA was to not exist. So thank you very much for joining me, and let's just get to it. So on 4th of July, uh, throughout the early morning hours of 4th of July, Texas faced one of its deadliest natural disasters in decades. Flash floods swept through hill country, specifically through Kerr County, killing over 120 people so far. That's been reported. 96 of which, and that number is probably has risen at this point, probably in Kerr County, along with 36 children. Um, some of this reporting numbers and stuff, I'm sure, have changed and whatnot, but that's last reporting that I saw, reporting that I could find. Leaving more than 160 missing. That's roughly between 160 and 180, actually, from what I've seen. Families, homes, and entire summer camps have been devastated. You had torrential rains fueled by a stalled tropical system, which was the remnants of Tropical Storm Barry, dumping over 20 inches of rain across central Texas. The Guadalupe River rose more than 25 feet in under an hour, and this submerged, whole communities in the area. One of the biggest ones in like hit hard and to the hearts of a lot of people was at Camp Mystic, where it's a children's summer camp and stuff. At least 27 campers and counselors have died or swept away in the waters. 5 campers and 1 counselor remain missing. And then other camps around the area were thankfully successfully evacuated. Local officials were just completely overwhelmed by this at the time. I mean, there have been videos of the waters that have come out that are just devastating. Videos of people, their personal, like how during the moments, seeking, like trying to get away from the water, rushing waters and stuff, being up in trees and all this. I mean, it's crazy. It's been pretty much the people on the ground is a little bit weird in the way that's being kind of reported. Roughly around 2,100 responders, and that number is probably it's probably a little low, because that's stated that it's in local, state, and federal teams across, and with 12 states assisting, using helicopters, boats, airboats, drones, horseback, and even in a lot of heavy equipment. Roughly around 525 people have been rescued. Number hopefully has risen up since that reporting. It's been so the state of Texas pretty much states that they have right over 2,200 people on the ground, assisting in rescue efforts and stuff. FEMA says that, according to their website, they have 1,800 personnel on the ground. It looked like to me from the reporting that around 900, half of that are actual like responders, like direct responders, trying to rescue people. So the other half, I'm assuming, are like assistance type positions with distributing aid um, and food and things like that, or helping in like coordinating efforts or whatnot. Um, but even so, this is like the most uh, deadliest so far flood from what I've seen in recent history, if not, and as far as recorded history. Most floods, like death tolls, are under 50. Like 50 is like one of the highest in especially recent history, um, or in the last 20, 30 years or whatnot. Like over 120 is just that's hurricane level death tolls. I mean, this is huge. This has been a huge um and deadly disaster, and one of the deadliest, like I said, that Texas has faced in decades. Um, but when it comes to like the issue around uh, support and like a preparedness and awareness and all these kinds of things, you start to have to worry about different things that are happening, even on, from local levels and also from federal levels, uh, where you have agencies and stuff from on the federal level that is, are there to help assist and help prepare your local areas. And if those, if because your local areas that, to some degree they do the best they can. A lot of them are underfunded, just like you have now. And a lot of times what like would help assist in the fact that they are underfunded, or even if they are funded well, they still, have limited capabilities. Is for the federal level to help and assist in that when things are, and making sure that they are properly funded to make sure they can assist local governments and systems and what alert systems and stuff like that. But with the recent uh, uh, like slashing of agencies federally on the federal level, from FEMA themselves to NOAA and the NWS, the National Weather Service altogether. I mean, these cuts and stuff have caused a rippling effect in how information is being uh, like given and through the chain, as from federal agencies down to local agencies, and the alert out down to citizens themselves, as far as how quickly they're being alerted to stuff. I mean, I know even with here recently in the past couple months, even just a few days ago, we meet like my house. I had a local, we had a pretty heavy thunderstorm just blow up out of nowhere. I even wind up with the major limb in one of my trees falling. Luckily, not doing any damage to anything or anything, but like the response, even for the alert coming out for the warning of the system, was actually late. I mean, and we've noticed that the past couple of months that it seems to be getting worse and worse as far as like when the alert systems are going. I have a weather alert radio that alerts blares out whenever one comes over, the location, everything, from the National Weather Service. And those alerts have become seemingly like where previous to this, they, there's years have been worked on getting those alerts like as soon as possible to people. And they were getting, better and better over the years, over the last decade or so, but here lately, since the cuts and stuff have happened, those agencies, personnel, funding, it's brought into question. We've talked about this in previous videos. It's brought into question, how well alerts are being given. And even recently, like I said, I've noticed it in me locally. But as far as this was concerned, there did seem to be that the National Weather Service issued multiple flash forward warnings starting around midnight. But the local officials claimed that those alerts didn't quite translate to public warnings. There was warning delays. Local officials reportedly delayed activating code red alerts. There was first call from other further up areas that where agency or local people that were noticing flooding happening in the early part of this system, further up or whatever, around 4 a.m. and alerted people in the Kerr County area and stuff of these, that it could potentially flow down and affect that area, which has recently been established as a major flood zone. But the warnings from the actual Kerr County local areas seem to be delayed about 90 minutes later after that warning, before some alerts were actually put out, and then there were some alerts that supposedly didn't reach recipients until 6 hours later, around 10 a.m., which was way after people were already affected, to say the least. So the inadequacy in the alert system locally, that they had applied, that was as clearly a problem. And this is something that, as people went back into local records here, there's been about a decade here effort by the county to try to improve, through grants and stuff, improve the system, the flood warning systems and stuff, because the local, the sirens and communication stuff are lacking and outdated. But those for years they either weren't granted or whatever. It come out, I think, in some report I saw recently, even a few days before this happened, funding had finally been accepted for these systems to be updated. But unfortunately, it's at this point kind of a little too late. Too little too late for this event, unfortunately. But it just goes to show, where these types of things, if this is on the local level, true enough, and that's where, as I was saying, local areas are, suffering as far as funding and the ability to pass things or get, acceptance for grants and money and to update things. And they need that assistance. And sometimes that assistance does come from, the federal government, as far as giving grants and whatnot. And those, a lot of times those here, especially in Trump's new in this term, since January, a lot of that funding and stuff for different states have been cut, or the grants have been canceled for areas, and so it's just an ongoing rippling effect that's causing problems with these types of situations, and emergency preparedness or whatever to be a problem. So so the big question that I'm presenting here is that even with even with the now Trump did go ahead and establish a major disaster area declared, to have FEMA, even though he has recently talked about trying to eliminate FEMA and whatnot. In this situation, just like last month, he claimed that he we wanted to wean off of FEMA. We want to bring, quote, we want to bring it down to the state level, a little bit like education. It's extremely expensive and doesn't get the job done. He says, I say you don't need FEMA. You need a good state government, claiming like that if governors can't handle this and they don't need to be governors, stuff like that. FEMA is very expensive and, in my opinion, mostly failed situation, because he's been talking this rhetoric ever since the hurricane stuff during Biden's term, in was it 2023, I think, when North Carolina and or maybe it was 24. Hurricanes hit and all that disaster area, flooding and stuff like that, damage. And he made a bunch of claims then that FEMA wasn't doing their job, even though they were most certainly on the ground, had loads of personnel there, doing everything they could do, and doing what FEMA's built to do, which even was better response than previously responses were, because the Biden administration had actually implemented some more streamlined policies and stuff to make it easier for people to get assistance. So this is stuff that he's been cooking up ever since then, and he talks down FEMA constantly. But I mean, as we all know, this goes all the way back to Hurricane Katrina, which I am in Mississippi. I witnessed a lot of that, situation, even though, not personally local to me, did we have too much of an issue outside of just some minor damage, but just, I remember that time and all the stuff that happened there, and there was a major reform of FEMA because of the response time on that event not being adequate, and a lot of accusations happening around that. I mean, FEMA has since then been, worked on little to be better as far as response time and the ability to respond and how they respond. I mean, it's been an ongoing effort to improve it, and I feel that it was doing a really good job here of recent, in my opinion. But Trump has been stating all this, and cooking this up to eliminate FEMA, along with all the other agencies that they've been attempting to eliminate. And so, that's a part of his agenda. He, did a 2025 budget proposal where he was planning to try to slash over 40% of the agency, eliminating agency grants, and privatizing emergency logistics and stuff. I mean, just recently, Trump says the agency could be eliminated as soon as December 2025, and that there was going to be major, or he said there was going to be major changes to FEMA. Would come after the Atlantic hurricane season in November. So they're like talking about this. That's when he made the statements about weaning off of FEMA, and stuff like that. And saying the agencies would immediately give out less money to states that are recovering from disasters. From what I saw reported, the latest reporting, it looks like they finally did release numbers so far, which is what looked like to be around $350 million in aid, personal aid to individuals, according to the FEMA website. So that is good to hear. But in Trump's first term, they established the BRIC grants, which is a grants and stuff that would be given out by FEMA to help with like disaster relief and stuff like that, people rebuilding, and there were more than 4.6 billion grants awarded since 2020. After that establishment, I think he established it around 2019 or something. But only 1.3% of that funding has actually been paid out. It because it takes years of like communities to do planning and engineering and paperwork required for FEMA to receive those funds or to send those funds out. Um, uh, and with all these, but then the Trump administration come out saying that they were going to cut all these grants. A majority of them, like around 3.8 billion or 4.4 billion or so, saying that they would the projects that were already started they would continue to fund, but majority of the grants would be canceled. The agency expects approximately 882 million to be returned to the U.S. Treasury, and 3.6 billion will be allocated for disaster response costs. So go back into the costs of the federal, response. Um, and that's uh, so the states. This funding this is a system that was set up by Trump, but then he turns around when he gets back in office, his second term, and cancels these grants. So he set up this system to help and assist states in his first term, and then turns around and cancels them in his second term. And this is what we're talking about. Where people who are expecting this aid to help them rebuild their homes, businesses, or maybe relocate from areas, or or whatever. Like this is assistance that and the administration just cancels them, and that is just, I mean, what do you say to that? And this is all a part of trying to defund FEMA, trying to break it down to. He made such claims back when with North Carolina that Biden was not doing what he should be doing as a president and making sure that FEMA ran properly, and stating that it should be done better and that he would do it better, claiming like he would do it better. But then he turns around afterwards, putting down FEMA, and at this point himself trying to completely eliminate it. It's like Biden was actually improving the system, or his administration was actually improving the system that he claimed they were, having bad response times to. But then he turns around and is trying to completely break apart the system. It's just it's the craziness with this administration and the projection that they over and over and over lay upon the blame on people, on like Biden or his administration or Democrats in general, or like anybody on the left, or like with whether it's somebody more on a progressive agenda or a socialist, social democrat agenda or whatever, claiming them as Marxist and communist and all this kind of like all the projection that they lay upon them, that have that's going to destroy the country, yet they continue to do policies and efforts that little by little destroy what little help the government actually did give to the people. um, so that brings up the question: what would happen if Trump and his administration could actually get rid of FEMA, which technically would have to be done through a through Congress, which apparently there is already a bill that is being established. I thought I had it pulled up, but I don't. A bill being established to try to some degree, reform the um, to reform FEMA. And while to some degree, some of the arguments that I've seen in it make sense as far as making it function a little bit better. Like the idea they claim is that it's to make it perform better as far as like and be more efficient. But a lot of it goes, from what I've seen, goes critiques of it that it goes against the agenda of the Trump administration in trying to eliminate it, because it doesn't necessarily eliminate it. It does reallocate it to the Homeland Security, and so it would be under the direct purview of the executive branch, but which is a problem to some degree, especially with the way Trump has talked about it. That could hurt it itself. But the idea to completely eliminate FEMA, though, and where Trump states that, we're going to send it to the state level, and that the states will just have to basically deal with it themselves. I mean, we have seen over and over again where states, in times like this, getting resources out there, getting assistance. I mean, a lot of times you wind up having great response from other states as well, which is good, and that's the part of, like, when you look at it on a community level, that's great. States helping out other states, and trying to help in that assistance. But at the same time, there are other agencies that like where FEMA joins in, that helps kind of coordinate everybody, or at least assist in that coordination to get things there, because a lot of times the immediate idea is that you've got to get like response stuff, like immediate, like emergency response stuff, but then there's other things after the fact, which a lot of times FEMA helps with more than even just the actual emergency assistance. They help with, getting systems prepared for, giving aid and whatnot, whether it be clothing, food, or trying to provide temporary, communication systems, or what. I'm like, there's so many different levels of things, and when a local government or is trying to just focus merely on the immediate, like, search and rescue stuff, it helps for there to be a system in place to sort of get a jump start on those other things that are going to be needed, but on the state level would more than likely wind up being delayed because of the efforts they're trying to make in the actual rescues part of the whole thing. So it helps for someone like it's a agency like FEMA to come in and help with that. Now, yes, there a lot of states, if not maybe all the states, have their own systems as well with that, but it just helps to know that there's an agency bigger, like, for the whole entire country, that can assist and help, where needed. That's the point of our government, or supposed to be the point of our government, is to assist the states with things when needed to help people. And you're basically saying that you're basically throwing regular individuals out to the, to the wool, so to speak, or to the to the disaster itself, that we're not going to help you. That if your local area, you like you chose to live where you are, and if you haven't established or helped establish a system to um, to be effective in these type of situations, that's on you, and that's your problem, and it's not the purview of the federal government to assist you in any way, form, or fashion. Like, we don't help. Like, we don't care about you. Oh, so your state doesn't completely, like, you don't have a lot. You don't have the funding to adequately respond to this situation and save people in a timely manner. Oh, but that's your problem. Like, the amount of assistance that FEMA has given in disasters, even in ones where there's accusations of slack or lack of response, any kind of assistance period helps in some kind of way to save people. So when you take away a response agency and team that could help in any type of situation like this, you're taking away the ability basically to rescue and save people. Whether it's in the immediate act or even after the fact, saving people. Because sometimes, people, accidents, like, people don't die just solely from the initial thing. Sometimes there's stuff after the fact that causes people to wind up, the safety of the area or whatnot. People, that's the part of that whole of that assistance as well. Setting up teams and stuff to make sure areas are safe or whatnot. And to protect people from unknown dangers and things like that. I mean, it's so when you're eliminating stuff like that, you're already hurting and putting people at risk, more and more people at risk. And I just don't see how, if you are a supporter of Trump, if you are, and think that, he does no wrong, or that he, what he says has, like, there's a reason for it, or that it's, a good thing or whatever. Like, if you believe the rhetoric that FEMA doesn't do anything to help, I urge you to look into any major disaster or something over the past 10, 15 years that FEMA has deployed people to assist with, and look at what they assist, and just imagine if that assistance was not there. Just imagine it. 1,800 people this time, 1,000 this time, or one other one, or 1,200 this time, or like in some of your hurricane instances where 5,000, 30,000, in Hurricane Katrina, 70,000. If those people were not deployed, if those people were not, that agency did not exist, and that assistance was not there, what could have potentially been the outcome? Yes, states would do what they could, other states would join in, and the effort would continue, the effort would be there. But to what degree do you think that it would have had delays, or certain amounts of people would not have been saved, or like in situations like this, everybody has to join in as much as they can and help. Any agencies within that state, within other states that can assist, and even on the federal level should. I mean, to argue that FEMA should not come in and assist, like there should not be an agency that assists in natural disasters, situations where people could not help it for something to happen. But yet, this president has no problem deploying National Guard to a city to protect its federal agency from protesters. Like, don't have a problem with deploying thousands of troops to protect its federal agency, but yet you have a problem with deploying a few thousand federal workers with an agency that is supposed to actually help aid in efforts for a natural disaster. Like, the argument there just doesn't make sense. So I hope that those efforts fall flat. We all need to be pushing back on that, because even, I mean, we're looking at over 120 people so far dead from this. Hundreds of people, over 500, have been rescued. But if those efforts had been lacked, how many of those 500 that have been rescued may not have been? People tell you who they are. And when a president tells you that they are willing to cut or make cuts to things, whatever the agency is, whatever the cut is, that assists regular people. We just talked about this when it comes to the bill. When we're talking about cutting things that help assist regular people, I don't care who the president is. You have to bring into question, how much do they actually care about you? Thank you very much for joining me. I hope the efforts continue, and hopefully, and this is efforts that's going to take weeks, months. I can only hope that fewer and fewer people are found, to have died or whatever, that more and more are rescued. Hoping for the best outcome in this, hoping that, hopefully going forward, this will help not only this area of Texas to implement in better systems, but also other areas to start looking a little bit better at their own systems. I know even on a local level here in Mississippi, there are a lot of stuff that could be improved here, funding that could be improved here, but I'm a Republican state with a Republican government, and a lot of times all they ever want to do is cut. And you see that across all red states. Cut. Got to start seeing these people for who they are. But hopefully, like I said, the efforts will start to look up more and more people saved and rescued. And I'm hoping the best for all the people involved, even the workers, safety, um, and uh, yeah. Thank you very much for joining me. Let me know what you think about this whole conversation. Um, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you very much. Peace. Clear Talk. I'm out.